Okay, this camera's doing nice. This is so clear. I had something on my mind. Now, I gotta admit that I like being a girl. I like being transgender. I like it. I enjoy it. I can't deny it. But speaking of things, I was thinking of small men and dwarfism. It used to be 4'7". Now I think some people regard it as 4'10". If you're under 4'10", you're a dwarf. You know. So small men, unmanly men are not supposed to exist. Small men are unmanly men, just like gay men are unmanly men. They're not going to have full acceptance. They're not going to have equality, and they're not going to really be treated like we're equal in a crew of guys on a job. So, like Paul Simon says, there is a prejudice against small men, so you might as well be transgender. Like Paul Simon said, he believed there was a prejudice against small men. And if there's a prejudice against small men, you know, if you're a small man, you're going to have, if you're in a crew of guys or a group of society, you're going to have to work twice as hard. You're going to have to work 2 or 3 times as hard to achieve the same acceptance and to fit in and have the same acceptance that every other man takes for granted. That the tall man takes for granted. They take acceptance for granted. They go into a crew of guys, a group of guys, they're accepted. They're normal. They're one of the ordinary guys. Hey, you want to go shoot basketball? Sure. But, a small man. And that's why on YouTube I don't like people talking about Gerald Coates. I don't like people talking about him. I don't like people talking about the size thing. I don't like it. I have this is my channel. I can say what I want to say. Um, that that you work 2 or 3 times as hard to achieve the same level of acceptance to be accepted. You're 2 or 3 times as hard. If someone's a small man, you have to just be aware of bullies and stand up to bullies and be ready to stand up to them. And you can stand up. A small man can stand up for himself. Those Mexican men are small, and Asian men. Being an average sized man, or even an average sized woman, is a relative term, because in countries like Uganda in Africa, or even in the country of Asian countries, in some of the African countries and in Asian countries, it's normal for a man to be 5'2". That's the average size of a man. Whereas in America or in European countries, some of the Europeans men are really tall. 6 foot tall is the normal size for men in certain parts of the world, but 6 foot tall is not the average size of a man in the whole world. But it's not an abnormality, it's a gender stereotype. Because women are small, like Madonna and Dolly Parton, 5 feet tall. You're a man who's 5 foot tall. Now I'm not 5 feet tall. I'm just talking. I'm just talking. A man who's 5 feet tall is normal, is deemed as medically normal. But it's a prejudice because it's a gender stereotype. It's a gender issue. It's a gender stereotype. You know, you know, men aren't supposed to be unmasculine. Men aren't supposed to be unmanly. Unmanly men are not supposed to exist. Men that are the size of women are not supposed to exist. So, if you're discriminated against, if you're a small man and you're discriminated against, if you want to be transgender, you might as well just be transgender. Or be gay if you want to be gay, because, there's not many laws that protect small men from discrimination. And it's a real issue. Harassment, discrimination. There needs to be a law. It needs to be added on to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Not just race and things, but physical characteristics that are inborn, like height. Now, I don't consider weight to be the same thing. Weight is more of a disability. Obesity is a disability. It's not a physical trait. Obesity is not a normal physical trait. Normal physical traits are being small statured and stuff like that. It's perfectly normal for someone to be small statured because it's normal. Because you're over 5 feet tall, you're normal if you're small statured. But obesity is a disorder because it causes health problems. Obesity causes health problems. It causes problems with diabetes. It causes problems with heart disease. Obesity, anybody who's obese can lose weight unless they have a gland disorder. And if you have a gland disorder, it's a disability. It's a disorder. Obesity is not a normal characteristic like being oriental with slanted eyes. Somebody may think you look Asian when you're not Asian. I mean, somebody may mistake you for an Asian when you're not Asian. Because of your eyes, because of the shape of your eyes, people may think you have Down syndrome, or that you, or Russian, or people may think you're black, you're mixed, interracial. People may think you're interracial, but you're not interracial. You have curly hair. My friend Wayne has curly hair. People may think he's interracially mixed, but he's not. He's not. He's a white guy. But you got guys with curly hair, people assume they're interracially mixed. You understand? People assume stuff, and people that are obese are unhealthy, and an obese lifestyle is not a healthy lifestyle when you sit around and eat all the time and don't do any activity. That's not healthy. Obesity is a disorder. Obesity is a disorder either caused by a gland disorder or caused by inactivity and eating a lot. You got to eat right to take care of your body, like Gerald, like Coates, because Coates takes care of himself. He goes to the gym. He works out on that elliptical machine. He can go 2 hours on that elliptical, and even though people may insult him for being a small man, he is a man who's in touch with his body. He cares about his body. He has pride in his body. He's exercised and he can run 2 hours on that elliptical machine. He can stand up for himself. He's physically fit. And we should help be body positive. And people that are bigger that struggle with weight, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with being more heavier. There's nothing wrong with it. But as long as you're struggling with it and trying to lose weight, because obesity, now people are big boned. Big bone is normal to be big bone. There's nothing wrong with obese people. I'm not insulting them. I'm just saying obesity is a disorder. Obesity is not a healthy lifestyle to be obese because it's not good for your heart. It's not good for diabetes. It causes diabetes. It's not good for you. And so as long as you're normal, within the 5 foot tall to 6'4" range. If you're in the 5 foot tall to 6 foot, 5 feet tall to 6'4" range. I think from 5 feet tall to 6'4", that's the average range of normal people. If you're oversized, you're a man who's 7 feet tall, they don't say that's a shame and a bad thing for him to be 7 feet tall, but it's abnormal. A man who's 7 or 8 feet tall is abnormally sized, just like a dwarf is abnormally sized. I mean, there are people, the tallest man that ever lived was 8 feet tall, man. He was like 8 feet tall, the tallest man that ever lived was. And he died at a young age. He didn't live very long. It caused health problems for that man to be 7, 8 feet tall. He didn't live a very long life. He didn't live very old. And there's a Guinness Book of World Records museum I went to in Tennessee and Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and it had his shoes in there, in that museum. His shoes were huge because that man was huge. But you see the prejudice, so the sizeism, heightism, just like sexism and racism. You have sexism and racism and heightism and sizeism. It's prejudiced against people just like a Nazified situation. They want to eliminate and eradicate small people because the Nazis want to round up the small people and get rid of them. Just like they said, then they came for the small people. They may try to slaves out of the small people because they're small. You see what I'm saying? It's making slaves out of the small people because it's a Nazi that comes up with a master race. Tall men are a master race. They're the Aryan society, the Aryan race. Like the white power is the Aryan brotherhood. The Aryan society is the tall people. Eliminate the small people because small people are not meant to exist. Small people are not meant to exist. They're a blight on civilization and society. They shouldn't exist. You know. That's the prejudice against small people. Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel sang together in Simon and Garfunkel. Paul Simon said in an interview he thought that there was a real prejudice against small men. Paul Simon is 5'3", inches tall. Nothing wrong with that. A man's normal sized, he's normal sized. He's normal. He's not a dwarf. He's not a dwarf. He's just a man who's a normal sized man. Just like in Asian countries, men are small in Asian countries. Women are tall. Women are treated bad for being too tall. What if a woman was 7 feet tall? You see the prejudice there? Women can get made fun of for being tall. It's a sexist stereotype meant to keep women small and men big. Men are supposed to be big, women are supposed to be small because of sexist stereotypes. It's sex stereotyping. It's under sex stereotyping, sizeism and heightism, according to gender, is sex stereotyping, and that sex stereotyping is against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So if you're being discriminated against because you're a small man or a tall woman, you could sue for the rights under Civil Rights Act of 1964 of sex stereotyping, because if it was a small woman, they wouldn't discriminate, but if it was a small man, they discriminated. They would laugh at a small man the same way they'd laugh at a man in a dress. It would be a prejudice, because they would laugh at a man in a dress, and they would laugh at a man who's small. It's a prejudice and it's a crying shame. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame when a man gets laughed at for being small and he's treated the same way he would be treated if he put a damn dress on. I said it the way a black person would say it. That's how a black person would say it. It's a damn shame. That's the truth. So don't talk about Gerald. Don't talk about small people. Thank you.